Hi everyone, how are you? Um, Here I am to discuss with you top 5 questions that are recently being asked in MEO Class 1 examinations in India. Okay, so I'll be taking you through a slideshow and then I'll be discussing the questions as they appear. Okay, so let's start. Here we are discussing the responsibilities for cargo carried. Okay. Okay, so our concern here is who will be paying for the damaged cargo when the contract is either CIF or FOB, right? These are both Incoterms which are coined by ICC, International Chamber of Commerce, which is cost, insurance and freight for CIF, and FOB is pre-on board. These are the Incoterms. Okay. Okay. So these terms determine who will be responsible for the cargo during the transit. Okay, so in CIF, as we know, cost, insurance and freight. So as the term says, cost, insurance and freight all will be held responsible by the seller or the shipper who is giving the cargo. Okay, he will responsible until the cargo reaches the destination port. Okay, if any damage occurs during transit, buyer, the other party, buyer who has purchased the cargo from the seller, will claim from the insurance company of the seller. So all the responsibilities until the vessel disembarks the cargo, okay, at the destination port, all the responsibility for cost, insurance and freight is with the seller. Simple. And carrier, who is the vessel, can also be held responsible if negligence is proved. Okay, so that will be responsibility in both the cases. If proven negligence, what we mean by negligence is, if say ki due to the fault of vessel, some accident has taken place and they have not exercised due diligence. Okay, in the case of an event, say vessel was subjected to heavy weather and no precautions were taken, containers were not laced properly, so that is a negligence, case of negligence on the vessel's part. If that is proved in the court of law, then the carrier can also be held responsible and insurance provider of the seller can claim from the carrier. Okay, so that is a different circumstances, but here we are discussing the responsibilities. Straightforward, the responsibility is more in CIF with the seller, and in FOB, on the other contrary, buyer is one who is more responsible. So as soon as the cargo is loaded on board ship, he is the one. The buyer assumes the full responsibility, right? Okay. So if any damage occurs during transit, buyer is the one who is responsible. So he will bear the risk, or the insurance company of the buyer will bear the risk. And carrier, in both the cases, if proven negligent, can be held responsible. Okay. Coming to differences. So let's check out what all differences are there. Okay. Coming to differences. Okay, this is the other slide. Okay, this one, let me erase the drawings. Clean all drawings. Come down. Okay, factors. Okay, factors, risk transfer. If the factor is risk transfer is at the destination port. In CIF, it's a destination that we already have read, the destination port, and FOB is when the at the load port. Okay, discharge port and load port. Okay, so risk transfer occurs at the discharge port here and here at the load port. Okay, second is insurance. Here the seller is providing for insurance, here the buyer is one who is providing for insurance. Okay. Third is the freight cost. Freight cost Freight cost, as we know in the CIF, it's seller who is responsible for the cost, insurance and freight, everything. So it's the seller who is the one who is paying the freight. Okay, seller is paying the freight, and here FOB buyer is. So what in generally in shipping happens, CIF contracts are costly because see the shipper or the seller is having more responsibility, no? So the cost of cargo will be more because he's having more responsibility. And FOB contracts are less cheaper. Why? Because the buyer straight away at the load put assumes the full responsibility. Right. So CIF is a costly one, FOB is less costly. So I mean both of the contracts are valid, accepted. So basically depends on the buyer and seller's choice of contract, what they choose for. Second question I will be discussing here is, okay, say it's like these days this improving CO2 emissions and all is a hot topic, right? So we will be discussing this one here. So like what is the chief engineer's responsibility? So the question is like what is the chief engineer's responsibility in improving CO2 emissions on board? I mean you cannot make a design change. So this is the first line which I have written is design changes are crucial, but it is for the long term efficiency. In design changes you cannot go on board and suddenly you can make some design changes, right? That is not approved also. So what we can do is implement operational and energy efficiency measures to reduce the CO2 emissions without changing anything in the design, any alteration in the design. So what we will see the what efforts we can make to reduce the CO2 emissions on board as a chief engineer. So this is the question which is being asked. Okay. So this is basically a technical question. So we'll see one by one the points the chief engineer will take up in reducing CO2 on board. So first is engine optimization. So as the name suggests, it's optimization. Optimization means maximum utilization is optimization. So what you can do is you can do regular engine tuning. Okay, tuning. So you can adjust the fuel injection timings. Basically, the purpose is to make the efficient use of the combustion equipments. Okay, say your fuel valves are properly maintained, your fuel pump is properly maintained, timings are adjusted. Okay, so there is no waste, zero wastage and minimum wastage and maximum utilization. Low load operation avoid karna hai. We have to avoid low load operation. Okay, which can contribute to efficient combustion. Okay, so as we all know that at low loads or at part loads the combustion is marginalized. So here what we are going to do is we are going to keep low load operations to minimum. Okay, as less sorry, as much less as possible to reduce the emissions. Second is speed and voyage optimization. Okay, what is speed and voyage optimization? So voyages are planned by the charterer. Okay, so where the cargo has to be discharged from one port to another port along with the owner. But what a chief engineer can do is he can sit along with the master and they can together plan for the voyage, speed and voyage. So what speed they can log during the total voyage. Say voyage is for 15 days. So these terms voyage and speed optimization you will see a lot of times during, if you are familiar with SEAM part 1, these points you will find there also: speed and voyage optimization, energy management, engine optimization. So these are all basically efficient utilization of energy from on board. Okay, so how can you sit with the master, decide on say 15 days voyage is there is rough weather patch somewhere in the middle, so we will do weather routing, we will go by a separate path, we will follow such and such speed that we can avoid this rough weather situation. Okay, so that is called voyage planning and optimization. Okay, so that we can do beforehand, that a chief engineer can do and plan. So how much your speed engine can make speed, so if we have to increase speed to avoid a rough weather situation, okay, that we can do, and later on we can reduce the speed. and we can plan the voyage as such that we are having just in time arrival as is required by the charters. So that is, and fuel consumption is also optimum. So that is what we can do. So slow steaming where feasible. Okay, it is reducing the burned fuel. So what it happens is if the fuel burn reduces, I mean if your engine consumes lesser fuel, your CO2 emission also goes down. So thus you will be reducing the CO2. And then weather routing, as we have discussed right now, right? If rough weather is there, then we have to manage those conditions. So that is your speed and voyage optimization. Third point is energy management. Okay, what is energy management? Energy management. So we have auxiliaries apart from main engine. So here we discussed main engine, okay, right? And this is all of your engine optimization, main engine and auxiliary engines. Then you have energy management, auxiliaries, pumps, AC, and any auxiliary engines. Okay, so they are cut in, cut out. Okay, that we can adjust. Then if you have auxiliaries like two generators running, which are running at part loads, say 30-40% load, if each of them are running, why run both of them? If your total load requirement is 70%, you can run one generator at that load. So thus you are avoiding running both of the generators at part loads. Sorry. And part loads, not only the fuel consumption will be high, your carbon emission, CO2 emission will also be higher at part loads. So you have to avoid that. Basically, maximum energy you have to consume and utilize. So that is your energy management. Okay. Okay. So then you can suggest the company that if shaft generators are installed, then during sailing, then you don't need to run the auxiliary engines. From shaft generator, you will get your energy for onboard usage. Okay, instead of auxiliary engines wherever possible. Okay, and then there is waste heat recovery. This is very I mean hot topic. Waste heat recovery. So waste heat recovery is basically your main engine and auxiliary engines exhaust gases running into the funnel. You have to trap them and use that energy. So basically 30 to 40% of the energy is still not consumed. So that you can utilize for your onboard generation of steam through exhaust gas economizer. So you have exhaust gas. What a chief engineer can do is you have to maintain the tubes, the fins, regular cleaning you have to carry out. Okay, so utilize in the exhaust gas economizer to generate steam. Okay, so that you don't need to fire the boiler during sailing at higher RPM. So that is a waste heat recovery. Okay. Okay. Then you have alternative fuels. You can suggest the company for using the alternative fuel. Okay. Alternative fuels. Okay. And last is the hull and propeller maintenance. So you will know that your hull is fouled through calculation during the known reports. No, you will know the fuel consumption is more and the propeller slip is also coming more. And then you can know that your hull is fouled. So you can always discuss with your superintendent that you need to carry out any hull cleaning or not. If it is required, then that will also help you improve the fuel efficiency and thereby reduce the CO2 emissions. Okay, done. This question is done. So we'll go to the next question now. Coming to the next one. Okay. The next one is very important topic, EEDI and EEOI. Basically, this topic itself is in a very vast one, EEDI and EEOI. So here what the questions are actually those I am discussing. So I mean the metrics with both the metrics, operational indicator and design index. So this one we have to discuss. Energy efficiency design index is your EEDI. EEOI is energy efficiency operational indicator, right? Okay, so these are the key indicators for efficiency. So as the name suggests, so EEDI basically is formulated at the design stage, and as the name suggests, the operational indicator, operational means when the engine is in operation. So this is calculated during the voyage, during the transit. EEDI calculated beforehand when your engine is at the design stage. Okay, so as the formula also suggests, so during the ship construction, before ship construction, so there is a required EEDI value for a ship type. So your engine has to meet the required EEDI criteria. So attained EEDI has to be less than equal to your required EEDI. Okay, so it is calculated as EEDI is equal to CO2 emissions upon transport work, which is gram per ton mile. So ton is your load, mile is your distance. So transport work, the deadweight tonnage multiplied by distance. Okay, so grams is your gram of CO2. So that is calculated at the design stage for the specific vessel type. So this is topic itself in a huge topic, but here we are just focusing on the difference between the two. Another is an operational indicator. So you see, if it is an operational indicator, the fuel consumed during a voyage will be taken. Okay, CO2 factor is decided on the type of fuel used. Okay, type of fuel used. Okay, tons is the amount of cargo you are carrying for a specific voyage. Okay, and tons of cargo multiplied by the distance in nautical mile that you have traveled from one port to another port, or say one voyage. So it is calculated voyage basis, operational indicator, and design index is a set parameter at the design stage of the engine. So this is the difference between EEDI and EEOI. Okay, let's move to the next question. Okay, so this is a, so see, when the surveyor is taking your interview, he will not be asking you straightforward questions, all of them. Some will be descriptive type. Okay, some will be direct to the point questions. Okay, so this question which I am now discussing, so other questions that some of them were direct questions, so these are descriptive. This here you can use your common sense and then you can give the answer also. So this, some questions you will get like this also, where you need to explain from your experience and what you think of this situation. So your DG turbocharger has failed. Say you have 3 auxiliary engines. Okay, one of which turbocharger is failed during operation, not working. So what emergency type of procedures you will carry out? This is what the question is. So a ship's DG turbocharger fails, so immediate action is required to ensure continued operations and minimize potential risks. So as a chief engineer, what can you do? Okay, so you have to assess the engine load capability. So your if 3 were running at continuously, say your cargo discharging and 3 generators are running, and say one has failed, so can you, this is the assessment, can you run only 2 and discharge your cargo at the required rate, okay, on the remaining DGs, okay, to determine if they can handle the increased demand. So because power requirement has increased, no, in the both of the generators, so you have to assess whether both of them are capable or not. If not, then comes the solution. So this is the one what surveyor is looking for, the specific surveyor's question that I am discussing. He is looking for this natural aspiration. Actually, we tend to forget that without the turbocharger also the generator can run at part load. Say in case of an emergency, you can always run the generator on natural aspiration. Okay, and this turbocharger is what? It's a forced aspiration, right? Scavenging is a forced aspiration. So naturally aspirated engines were also before in picture. So now what, without turbocharger you have to make some arrangement with a reduced power output. You can run the generator. It's a temporary solution that can be carried out for some time. This is what surveyor is specifically looking for in this question. Otherwise you keep on answering a lot of things, but he will not be happy and satisfied with your answer. And permanent repair is of course needed, but for temporary, what solution you need to implement is you can run it as a naturally aspirated engine. Okay, implement load shedding and reduce the power demand. That is okay. You have to reduce the other equipments which are not necessary to be run. Okay, so that power demand is reduced. That we all know. As a second engineer, we have done all these things. Energy management, reducing anything which is not very necessary at the time of say reduced power we have. So what can we do? We can switch off the AC. We can switch off some pumps which are not required. Only run which is necessary. Okay. So this is what others are all okay. We can inform the master company for source assistance. Okay, so that is okay. Source assistance company will provide. Of course, it is a very urgent matter. That's why we are running it at lesser load and natural aspiration. So urgent matter, source assistance always will be given by the company. But for the time being, temporary solution is at running at a naturally aspirated engine. Okay, so that is okay. Class can also be involved. Okay. So practically aspect is that you can run it with a natural aspiration. Okay, coming to the last two questions. Okay, so here are the two questions which are jumbled into one slide. Okay, one is the noise limits as per the noise code, and the other is fuel contamination, which is contaminated fuel supplied on board by the bunker supplier, that is off spec. So supplied off spec. So we'll be discussing one by one these two. Okay. Coming to the noise limits. So when you go through this noise code, no? Noise code. It's mandatory as per the SOLAS. Okay. So when you go through the noise code, you will find this one chart for the areas, okay, which have these noise levels. Okay. So these are determined beforehand when the ship is ready for operations, no? Then the surveyor class will also be involved, and the surveyor class will carry out with the necessary meters and all. The noise survey report is submitted. Okay, for the vessel. And why is noise survey important? Why are the noise limits important? Because we seafarers are always subjected to loud noise in the engine room. As an engine room say team, you are always facing 110 decibel sound when you are going out into the engine room. In the ECR also you are facing 75 decibel sounds. When you are in the accommodation sleeping peacefully in your room, then also you are subjected to 60 decibels of sound. And what is actually said is key, found is key, 80 decibel is the safe level of sound recipient for a human being. So seafarers, you see 110 is too much for you. So how you can bring this down to 80 decibel? That's where you use your ear protectors, right? Noise cancellation ear protection is the way you can bring down this. Then you can go out in your room and then you are allowed to work. That's why wearing an ear protection is very important. What the ear protector does is it reduces or attenuates, the term is attenuation, attenuates the sound from 110 to 80. So 30 decibel of attenuation is required by your ear protector. So this is also one question being asked. So how will you order the earmuffs in the engine room? So you need to check that your earmuff is suitable for reducing the sound by 30 decibels. Okay, so here we have answered two questions. One is this, ordering an earmuff. Another is the noise values in the engine. This you must remember, okay, before going to your orals. You must remember this question is very hot question being asked right now these days. And then decibel, they ask you what is the what is decibel and is it an absolute unit or it's an non absolute unit. So it's a actually at absolute unit, it's a logarithmic unit, okay, which measures the sound and intensity and log value. Okay, so that is what it is. Hearing damage starts before 80, above 80. So 85 decibel, above 85 is your hearing damage where it's required. So in ECR it's 75, in engine room it's 110. Okay, so here we come to the other question, which is off spec bunker fuel. So one question we have discussed is noise code and the other one is off spec. So what do we mean actually off spec? Every time we say off spec, what is off spec? So what is spec first? We need to know. spec is nothing but specifications. Spec, specification, specification. What is specification? Okay, we all know that our fuel must be complying to ISO standard ISO 8217, and the latest standard is 2024. So if you go to this, there are fuel specifications which are mentioned that your fuel must be following. So there is sulfur quantity, there is vanadium, there is ash content, there is water. There are a list of values which have to be maintained. So your bunker supplier must be following this specification, and then the fuel must be supplied. Okay. So guys, you must go to this ISO 8217/2024, and then you can find the number of specifications which are required. Okay, so what is off spec? If your fuel is not meeting the criteria which is required by 8217/2024, then it is off spec. So off the specifications is off spec. So you have found some criteria which is not met in the fuel. You received the fuel, you took the bunker on board, you signed the BDN, and then you found that your fuel is not meeting the criteria. So the first case is that here it is written stop using the fuel immediately. Okay, that is understood. But first you receive the report, right, lab report, and then you will know that the fuel is not meeting the criteria. So what I suggest is, and what the companies follow is, if it's not a dire emergency, you should not use the fuel until you receive the lab report. Okay, that we all know, that we follow as a practice on board. Okay, so you should not use the fuel until the lab report is received. So once the lab report is, then only you can know that it is off spec, right? Because as a chief engineer, you received the bunker, you must have checked the report provided by the supplier, and then you agreed that it is complying with the fuel requirements, ISO requirements, and then only you signed the BDN and you took the bunker on board, right? Then if it is lab report is not complying, you have to inform the master company, and then you have to review the sample. You ask the testing agency who has sent the report to review their report. If they are asking, then you can send the resample the fuel from your bunker tank, and then send it for analysis again to recheck whether the report is correct or not. So again, if that it is ascertained, once it is ascertained that okay, the fuel is actually off spec, then we have to go on and see what kind of off spec it is, right? If sulfur is one which is off spec, sulfur is the one which is off spec, then then nothing can be done. You have to debunker. If it is water content, or say ash content, or say any other pore point or anything else like that, then there can be some solutions like fuel treatments. Okay, some companies fuel treatment, some chemicals can be used, and that is from the maker we can discuss, from the manufacturer of the chemicals we can discuss that this is a situation. So debunkering also has a major cost involved. Okay, so we can always give the bunker supplier to initiate the claim. We will always receive the amount, because see, once it is proved that the fuel is off spec, bunker supplier has nothing but he has to accept on the terms. So he will also submit his report, then there will be a claim process, both of them will fight in the court, because a huge amount of cost is involved, no, in bunkering. So debunkering also will cost a huge amount, and that will all be borne by the supplier. So supplier will not try to readily accept it. So they will fight in the court. So that will be a long process as per the fuel testing protocol. Okay. But what we can do on our part, that we have not to use the fuel. We have to keep it on board, segregate it. Okay. And then if any fuel treatment can help, or we can use the fuel, then we have to test it again after treatment. We have to test it again. Get it verified by the testing lab, and then we can use it. And the most important thing as a chief engineer is key, you should always record it in your logbook, oil record book, all these operations, and logbook also say bunkering operation and all will record as a general general points in the logbook, no. So in our oil record book also, we always record the bunkering operations. So if there is any debunkering operation, okay, that also we have to record in our ORB, because ORB is the one which is checked by the port state control. Okay, PSC is always, so if there will be any discrepancy, PSC will always come to know that this vessel is having such and such issue. If you are going to debunker at some port and PSC boards at that port, then they will ask for the entries in your ORB. So that's where your ORB should always be ready at the port, right? Okay, then that's all from my side. Okay, thank you everybody, thanks a lot.